The traditional school is called the traditional school for a very good reason. One, it was the first cartomantic deck to be published with pictures in the pip cards for basically to help clue off the reader about various aspects about the card. Again, the idea wasn't so much, though it later became and sprang into that, to identify with the people in the card, but rather to clue you off. For example, that the Nine of Swords there is about, mental anguish. You can kind of see that in the person there, obviously. The idea of being bound up, these sorts of things. And because of that, it had became immensely popular. It was the first cartomantic tarot deck to have those kinds of pictures for 36 pip cards, which is 2 through 10 for the 4 suits. Now, the thing, of course, is that the artist, Pamela Colman Smith, besides being sort of railroaded by weight, she also was sort of a theater buff. And so what happened is they have sort of a stage set kind of feel to them. I have a giant size here for the visually impaired. Let me see if I can find the 10 of Cups here real fast is a really great example of showing you where it looks like you're in a theater in which, here you go, you can see the stage. And you can see it. See, this is a backdrop, there's the line, and here's the stage that the actors are standing on. And so it sort of has a kind of a theatric feel to it, which is, of course, Pamela Colman Smith. She was a bit of a theater buff, and later retired back to the United States, and was received in the Catholic Church and whatnot. And died in abject poverty because she didn't insist for royalty rights. Anyway, what happened is the pictures then spun off in different directions, and so I like calling it traditional in the same sense that the verb to be is traditional. We think of the verb to be as very regular and common and always around, but actually in every language you can think of, it is irregular. Example, to be, let me conjugate it: I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, you all are, they are. In German it gets more obvious. Ich bin, du bist, sie, es ist, wir sind, ihr seid, and sie or sie sind. The idea is almost in every form of conjugation it changes. In Hebrew it's even worse because it's a triply weak verb. And so the idea is it's always morphing, always changing, and while we think of it very common and no big deal, the fact is it breaks rules left and right. And essentially that's what the traditional decks do. They started off with Arthur Waite not really wanting to sell the house. He was afraid, because this came out in 1910. He realized the secret was out with the Golden Dawn, and he wanted to profit on that. But on the same token, because he had taken over part of the Golden Dawn in kind of a coup, one of the splinters, but he still didn't want to sell the fort. And then in 1912, his worst fears were realized when Aleister Crowley did just that. So he does kind of veil some of the truths and hide them, but he also made something that was very useful. And of course, he does also see the veiling. For example, the ancient Celtic cross spread is neither ancient nor Celtic, and sort of a cross. But he had to throw out something in that was not the opening of the key spread, because he needed to give something, but he didn't want to give away the secrets. And so, again though, does the Celtic cross really be less spiritual? I think not. I think it can be a very powerful spread. So again, you take it for what it is. And varies and then goes quite afar from the systems-based approach from which it sprang. But is that necessarily a bad thing? I'm not so sure. It can be, it cannot be. You are going to, like the historical decks, have to do quite a bit of memorization work with it. And the beauty, of course, is the pictures will clue you off. Now, there also are a number of budget decks based off the Rider-Waite-Smith, which is the most common. I'm not a big fan of the Rider-Waite-Smith art. That's why I like the Golden Tarot here. But you have to contend with it because all the books are into it. And so there are the cheap decks you can buy, however, you will pay in a different way. Note, unillustrated pip cards. You're going to have to do a lot more memorization. It's going to be just as bad as the historical decks, without the benefit of having a deck that you can pull the wool over people's eyes with the card meanings, because they're so different and strange, and very few people get into the historical decks. So there are actions, there are opposite, things you can do like that. So if you're laid off and you want a cheap deck, you can find them and do that. Again, some people like myself, we do not like the Rider-Waite-Smith art. But there are enough clones. For example, we have the Morgan Greer deck, which is right here, and people have used that as a godsend. And also the Golden Tarot by Cat Black has also been a really great clone deck as well. Again, now I just couldn't pass up a giant size. This is the largest tarot cards in existence right now, or pretty much most of them, and very good for teaching and school purposes and things like that, giving lectures, and for visually impaired persons, because as someone who suffers from a physical disability myself, I want to be conscientious of other persons like myself who suffer from various issues. In fact, we'd all be blind if we didn't have glasses, so think about that. Anyway, so there are many things to commend the traditional school, but also, again, because it's so common, it is going to require quite a bit of work on your part. And also, tarot buffs will be telling you what your cards mean sometimes, and you could get into a tug of war with a querent about card meanings if they do not understand the concepts of relax and sit back and enjoy the journey. So that is the traditional school.